And we're recording. Gotta love it. All right. There's somebody on the YouTube, by the way, that said that, obviously we don't run the music, so there's no. And I never did the intro before anyway. But they missed the let's have a day, let's go. So I'm going to give it to them. Let's have a day. Let's go.
Oh, so you only get that if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts? You know, obviously, yeah, I guess it makes sense.
You got YouTube version. Yeah, you have to listen on the you got to listen back on one of the podcast platforms to get the post-edited intro music and the intro that I record. Otherwise, if you're just on the YouTube, you get our ugly mugs right immediately once I hit record, and then it's just you and me. The stash you have is strong, by the way. Welcome into the podcast, everybody. September 1st. How about that, Kevin Ward?
Don't like that, but
you don't like that.
Doesn't mean it's college football season. It's here.
I was gonna say, it's a pretty good time of year.
It's a great time of year, but the fact that summer is coming to an end, the year's going by real quick.
It sure seems that way. When you have a kid, it seems like every day. Well, days are kind of like slow sometimes, but then weeks and months go by quick. We are here. A little bit of hecticness. We were delayed on the start of this because of said kid. When you have a kid, things get chaotic. Kids get sick. Here we are. I'm flustered. It looks like you're taking notes, which would be really helpful because we got back from seeing some family today, and I'm just completely all out of sorts. Real quick before we get into the game recap today, we don't have Grant. Grant is still in Iowa City, or at least he's in the air right now. His flight was delayed out of Iowa back to Colorado, so it's just Kevin and myself tonight. Thank you to everybody who came out to the live show. That was fantastic. Kevin couldn't stick around because he had to go save some guy's hip, but that's specuation. Could be a guy's ankle or a knee.
It was a motorcycle accident, and the
shit,
the guy's leg was hanging on by a thread.
Literally. That's not good. That's not good.
Yeah, this job has scared me away from ever getting a motorcycle.
But were you ever going to before?
Maybe.
Really?
I kind of miss zipping around on the moped, to be honest with you.
I think that's a different ballgame. Motorcycle and moped are two.
You're just as exposed, man. You're just as exposed. That doesn't take much. The car hits you going 25 miles an hour, you're in for a bad day.
You could make the same argument then that just riding your bicycle is similar.
Don't ride your bicycle on the road.
That's true. Again, like I said, welcome in. Live show was great this past weekend on Friday. Thank you for coming out. Drake was there. Grant was there. Again, Kevin had to leave early. But for everybody that made it, thank you so much. It is really crazy to see everybody who comes out and supports our live events. All the way going back to, when was the first time we ever did? I guess technically the first time we ever did a live thing was the Kansas City. Well, the Big Ten Championship was our first event. But we did sort of a public forward-facing event back in 2019, all the way back then in Kansas City at that golf tournament. So
that was a fun time.
It was a fun time, and this weekend was a fun time. People got to drink some Hops by a Million. That is available until it is gone at the Coralville location, and then of course at some point we'll bring it back, hopefully in the spring.
I'm gonna make more.
We're gonna make some. We'll make more. We sold some Kirk's Dogs t-shirts. Got tons of feedback over the weekend about how many. Not just Kirk's Dogs tees, but just Hawks by a Million, Goat Wallace. There was a lot of washed up walk-ons apparel in the crowd this weekend, I heard, which is awesome.
I saw quite a few different renditions of washed up walk-ons merch. Saw a few Kirk's Dogs, bunch of Hawks by a Million, saw a couple walk-on armies, and then I saw a handful of known for great D's. It's just good to see the whole gambit out there. We got the whole roster playing at a high level, and it's good to see that. We don't just have one player out there carrying the team.
And maybe that was a little a forewarning for what the game was going to pan out to be. We'll get to that in a second. One last note on the live show. Thanks for bearing with us there on the tech difficulties. We were supposed to start that thing at 3. We didn't start it until about 3:20. And of course, you guys just took that as an opportunity to sit there and drink more beer and probably make fun of us at your tables as we sat there. We did finally figure it out. And that's what you get when you have people who aren't professionals trying to run live shows. I did think it looked good, though. The backdrop was cool. The setup was neat. Drake was in full Drake form. For everyone who wasn't there, Drake compared the NCAA to the Democratic political party, and over the loudspeaker, middle of the podcast, said "red or dead," and unapologetically, and that's a little taste of what happened. And we were glad to have Drake with us for at least one last final live appearance or show. So Grant and I do have a feeling that he'll be back on the Patreon at some point. He has to figure out his life over the next 4 months. He's got some interesting things going on. But that being said, Kevin, you didn't go to the game, did you?
No, I did not. I had a wedding.
You did have a wedding.
Yeah, I was able to sneak out to the tailgate for a little bit. Watched the first half of the game in the parking lot. Had to head home around halftime. Watched the second half, and then I had to get going to a wedding.
Okay. Well, but you at least saw the game.
I saw the game. Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah,
it's good. Second half much better than the first.
First half was demoralizing.
Early sentiments were, wow, this feels a lot like what we've felt the past 2 years.
Yes.
And saw that all over Twitter. It is almost like a badge of honor if you can hold your tongue on social media now and just get a complete product. I only made one tweet during the game. That was I think early in the fourth quarter, maybe late in the third, when Stevens kicked one of the PATs. And I just said something like, pop off his foot is looking good today. It is, it looks like he has some improved power there. But no comments from me about general play, general production of the offense, any comments on how the game was going as a whole. And of course, you had plenty of the Cheeto dust out there, plenty of Cheeto fingers, just absolutely ready to furiously demolish a keyboard or a phone screen with thoughts and opinions and early illogical, emotional feelings about how the offense was working early on in that game. But nonetheless, there was a lot of validity to it. The first half, Kevin, looked quite a bit, at least on the, at the macro level, production wise, it looked very much so from what we've seen the last 2 years. And then we looked different in the second half. So do you have any thoughts on that first half?
Yeah, I mean, it just looked poor pretty much all around. You had drop balls, you had penalties, you had inability to establish any sort of a run game. And yeah, it was just bad football.
Punt return called back.
Yeah, that was a bad penalty there. But on the bright side, a lot of stuff that can easily get corrected.
I thought the penalties was an interesting one.
Not something you typically see from Iowa is losing the penalty battle game one.
I thought that so I think they showed the stat that the Hawks averaged something like 2.5 penalties or 3 penalties a game for 30 yards or something like that last year. And it was like a top 5. We were top 5 in the country, as we normally are, which is why I bring this to attention. 6 penalties for something like 45 or 50 yards in the first half. In the first half alone. And you're sitting there thinking, okay, obviously the offense isn't producing. And the only way we win football games, or we're still able to win football games with this Iowa team, in the way that the rest of the country is just baffled by the way we still come out with 8, 9, 10 wins a year with the worst offense. By the way, Kev, maybe it's PTSD, or you just black it out of your memory. I know how bad we were offensively last year and the year before that. I went back and looked. I didn't know that we were that bad. I mean, I did know.
You didn't know that?
But I didn't, even though we were dead last, and we were last in total offense yards per game by 30 yards to the 129th team. You would think, I mean, it was outlier from the bottom of the bottom. You take the bottom 10 teams, we were still an outlier of the bottom 10 teams. It was bad.
Yeah, it was painful.
So they start to bring up, the graphics teams and the broadcast teams, which, by the way, shout out to Pat Anger. I don't know. You probably didn't get a chance to sit down and sync that up since you were kind of at two different locations and running all over the place. But I pulled the old, hey, let's pull up the YouTube stream on my laptop and use that audio, and then we'll watch the TV visual. And it was a phenomenal experience to watch the game that way. I highly suggest it if you are comfortably at home and you have that ability. Pull it up on your phone. They're obviously on the radio, so pull it up on your phone on an app. Does anybody actually have a radio anymore in their house other than in their car? There's no way, right?
You just get radio on your phone.
That's what I'm saying. Is there's no one actually using a physical radio anymore? Is there? Maybe.
I do believe they still exist somewhere. I don't.
Can you buy physical radios?
I'm sure you can. I mean, Radio Shack doesn't exist anymore, but I'm sure someone sells them.
Probably easiest just to use your app on your phone. But throw Dolphin and Pat Anger up there and then watch the TV copy. It's a treat. Pat was a treat. He had several one-liners that were just very Pat and very funny. Highlighted by the one that I tweeted out. Dolph was talking about the weather, and I think somebody went down with a cramp or something, and Dolph said something about, yeah, it's going to be a sweaty day out there, and Pat just goes, well, I'm fat, so I sweat anytime, anywhere. I'm sweaty all the time. And it was just so like casual. It just came out of his mouth, and you're like, yeah, that's what we're going to get now with Pat Anger on the mic. What I took away from that is Dolph is such a professional that you could damn near throw anybody in the booth with him.
He can just roll with it.
And it's going to be a smooth broadcast. I mean, it felt pretty seamless. I'm sure if you're going to like professionally critique Pat on his performance as color commentator on day one, week one, there's, you could put a list together, but it sounded pretty smooth to the listener, at least in my opinion. So I was pleased with that. I got to see Pat on Friday before the live show, which was fun. He was psyched. Dolph was psyched. Everybody was happy. Back to the game. Very uncharacteristic on the penalties. And where I was going with that was Iowa wins in the margins. We win on special teams.
Yeah, that's how we won last year. We won with the hidden yardage, special teams, and penalties,
and turnovers.
Turnovers, yeah.
Now turnovers, defense was humming, right?
They got robbed of one.
Which one?
The forced fumble on the quarterback sack.
Okay.
Jay Higgins got called with a phantom holding call. Complete bullshit of a call.
Yeah. So out of those 6 first half penalties, I did hear that one was.
It was trash call.
Trash
call. Yeah.
And I say I hear it because Ken Diesel right at the beginning of the second quarter till about 3.5 minutes left in the first half, she wanted nothing to do with being inside the house. She wanted to go outside. I said, cool, we'll pause the game. I'll come back to it. We'll watch, because she was about to go down for a nap. And when we got back inside, it would not let me. The TV had shut off, and it would only let me go to where it was live. So I missed the first 9 minutes of the second quarter, which that play happened. So what happened? We had a strip sack, you said?
Yeah, a little strip sack. Jay Higgins gets called with a holding call, and he's not even really touching the guy. Like, he gives him a shove, jamming him outside, and then it looks like the tight end actually grabs him. Like, how offensive linemen would try to sometimes like grab a defensive lineman so that he can't get to the next guy.
Yep.
So it's free up another guy. That's almost kind of what it looked like, but somehow Higgins gets called with the holding call, and that negates the fumble.
So that's tough, because that would have been another turnover. I believe we had 3 on the day.
We did.
Should have been 4, I guess. And that cuts real actual penalties that we committed from 6 to 5. You hope that with the refs kind of getting their their toes back in the water here as the season begins. That dumb or phantom penalties don't happen. Still,
on the other side, though, like there's a couple of we got called for one illegal motion. I think we honestly probably could have gotten called for 2 or 3
with the forward motion.
Yeah,
we were kind of running banana
that,
routes.
to me, that just seems like timing's just not quite there yet, and just something that will hopefully get better as the offense gets more comfortable within the system. But it's just another thing to be looking out for.
I noticed that too, and I had a quick thought of like, wait, that's illegal, right? Like it almost looked like arena football.
No, it's arena, and I think Canada you can do it
or Canadian.
too.
You can kind of you can start a guy like 12 yards back and have him get like a flying 10 start. I saw that a couple times and we didn't get called on. So we only got called on one of those. Obviously, you have to clean things up because if you're Iowa, you need to win in the margins. You have to win the turnover battle. You have to win on the defensive side of the football. You have to win on special teams, pinning people, not just in the punt game, which I would say the punt game was as average, slightly above average. We had an okay day with Reese.
Another unforced penalty there with the gunner going out of bounds.
Yeah, just weird, what you would call maybe week 1 stuff.
Yeah.
If those things continue, obviously a thing to keep our eye on, as that would be troublesome. It's Iowa. It's Coach Woods. It's Coach Wallace. We'll get to Coach Goat Wallace in a second. I don't expect things like that to keep happening. I would suspect that Iowa brings itself back to its common ground in the 3-4 penalties a game range, and we're leading the country or up there for that stat as we usually are every year. Good to see the turnovers, Kev. Last year last year specifically in 23, even though we had an elite defense, I believe we only had 9 interceptions the entire year. And combine that with the fumbles, and we didn't have, as far as turnovers go per game, we were not forcing them at the rate that we had the previous couple years.
Mm-hmm.
So it was good to see 3. And they were really like early on, it was like 3 and out. Sebastian strips that ball. He's so good, by the way.
I think actually Deontay Craig's the one that punched it out in that
Did
play.
Did he?
That's what I saw. Yeah.
Okay.
Like Sebastian had him kind of wrapped up, driving him back, and I think Deontay Craig's coming to clean it up, and I think he's the one that actually punched it out.
So we were just suffocating them early on, and I don't think we expected anything different, really. This is Illinois State. To be honest, their offense didn't do enough I certainly didn't watch film on them. I couldn't even tell you who their playmakers are. I think they had a back early. They were talking about their running back early on in the game. They got hurt. I think he was their stud. So unfortunate for them. Hope he's okay moving forward. But their offense couldn't even breathe enough on any drive really to show what they had.
Yeah, and Iowa's defense. Everyone knows what we run on defense, and there's gaps that you can attack it at, especially in the passing game if you want to just like try to dink and doink down the field. They tried that, and they just couldn't really execute very well. I mean, Iowa played very well in defense, but that was not a very good offense that we played either.
That's what I'm getting at. Is this, did Iowa play great on defense?
There's a lot of like 5 to 10 yard routes on the kind of on the boundary that good teams convert those plays, and they weren't converting them.
Yes, correct. Where you would see, when we do play good football teams this year, they're going to sustain 8 or 10 play drives every once in a while. And it's in those moments where you're a true Iowa fan, you kind of lean forward on your seat and you realize, okay, but can they go 12 plays or can they go 14 when we get down into the red zone and they start to get a little less space?
Yeah,
and
punch it in if they are to get down to the red zone. But I think only just one big play let up. It's kind of like that jump ball 50-50 on, I think it was like they got to like the 50-yard line or so on Nestor. But other than that, I don't think we gave up any good plays or big plays, which is good to see. And then, just a few things to clean up, just week 1 stuff.
Yeah.
But overall, pretty happy with how defense played.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be. I think they gave up less than 200 yards.
182 or something. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some little stuff you can be picky about, but it's looking like another real solid unit, which we expected. right?
It's exactly what you wanted out of the defense. And in the early games for the defense, we know we have an elite defense. We know that it is a top 5, top 10 defense in the country. When you go out against an opponent that is an FCS opponent and not even a top 5 FCS opponent, that's a game where I actually be curious. Would Coach Parker or any of the defensive coaches say aloud, like, this is a game we need to dominate? Like, we need to, or would they say it in that sense of like, because it almost, when you say it that
No,
way,
because I mean, we've talked about it before, and I think we talked about it with Coach Wallace too, is that you always prepare your team for a dogfight, right? Like
yeah,
you always
right.
respect your opponent. And like we joked about, like the coaches tried to hype up the other teams so that like by the end of the week, it's like, damn, we're gonna be in a freaking dogfight. It doesn't matter who we're playing,
These
right?
Redbirds are going to bring the heat.
Right. But I think when they are maybe sizing up an opponent, they'd be like, yeah, these guys should not be able to block YA Black and Aaron Graves, which
Amongst themselves, like in a staff meeting, they're telling
right,
each other
exactly.
that.
It's like we like our opportunities here, here, and here, but
But they're never going to say to the players, hey, these guys are not.
yeah, they're never gonna go up to him like, hey, Aaron, if you don't have 3 sacks this game, you're a sack of shit.
Which, by the way, Aaron Graves.
Yeah. Had a great game. Had a great game.
And he should. And that I think these aren't dumb kids. Although we did have a couple dumb teammates. Not going to name names, but we had a couple. I think me and you just thought of the same person when I said that. They know inherently, without letting it affect their preparation, the level of talent that was coming in. They know how to still use that and understand that, okay, just because individually these guys might not be as good as our roster is man to man, as an 11-man team, a lot of things can happen, and that's why they play the games. By the way, talk about a dogfight from an FCS team. I don't know if you caught the end of that Oregon game. They were making.
How about that, huh?
I'm laying in bed. It's like I had gotten home. Where were we? I don't even remember where we were yesterday. We had laid down. Kinley was asleep. We got in bed, and I pull up like the late night scoreboard of football games. I'm trying to see like what's going on. And Oregon 17-14. I'm like, whoa. There's 2 minutes.
Like, supposed to be like 30-something point favorites.
There's like 6 or 7 minutes left in the game, and they're up 3 points. And I'm like, hold on a second. Actually, the first thing that went through my mind is Friday at the live show, I made the comment and I said it was totally unfounded. We were talking about the new teams in the Big Ten. I said, I'm not worried about Oregon. Like Oregon doesn't scare me for some reason. And then what do you know? Idaho's taking them to the brink and Oregon's
Idaho wasn't scared of them either.
Idaho wasn't scared either. They did have to score.
Man.
Yeah, the 2 touchdowns they scored were on trick plays, but nonetheless, they were in a ball game, and then Oregon closed it out late. But yeah, I think our players know that the out of division opponents is an opportunity to really tune the gears, kind of wet the whistle a little bit before they get into a little higher level of play generally when you step into the Big Ten. So, I think there was an interview with, who was it with? Was it with Jay? It was somebody on the defense. They asked him like, what's it like for the, what's it like for the offense to be the star of this game? We'll get the offense here in a second. And Jay was just like, yeah, the offense was nice today. That was nice. Like them boys are nice. And there was like a smirk on his face that said, it was almost like happy, like, hey, yeah, go interview the offensive guys. Ask them some questions. Like, we knew we were going to do what we come out and do. It's good to see that. And first week one stumbles or obstacles or things, those are all things that can get cleaned up pretty easily. You watch the film and you make a note of it in your head and you're like, okay, that's one of those mistakes that you don't make twice. So all good stuff there. Offensively, we were slow. You said it. We struggled to establish the run, although I think we were trying. I think
the commitment to establish a run game is definitely there.
And you talked about it at the live show on Friday. We talked about it on this podcast before. Pass game is opened up by run game. When you run the ball effectively, they have to put a couple people in the box, or they have to do things where they are putting the run game first, and then all of a sudden you've got matchups or spaces in the defense where you can find a spot and you can get them the ball. In the same sense, pass game opens up run game. You throw downfield a couple times, you prove that you can make some completions, you can stretch them both vertically and horizontally across the field, and now they can't load the box in a situation where they might, and now it opens up running lanes. We saw that in the second half as well. Was this just in your opinion, was this just a matter of we got to shake the rust off here a little bit? Let's make some a few halftime adjustments. Let's see what they're working with and just let's ease into this thing, and then that's when things started to open up. Or was it a lot of execution things where, well, if the guys, we always come back to this. If guys execute what they're supposed to do, we'll make big plays in the first half too.
I think I would lean towards it being more on the execution side of things. I don't think we really did a whole lot of stuff differently in the second half that we were doing in the first half. Yeah, like on the first half, I think we had a couple drop balls, some penalties that killed some drives. We missed some blitz pickups, and that just kind of we weren't able to sustain any drives in the first half.
No momentum.
Yeah. And then the second half just played better. I mean, I don't really have a whole lot of answers for you. Like we finished blocks more. We stayed on our blocks. Maybe found a couple counters to like the first half. They were bringing a lot of guys from the second level in the secondary and they're kind of catching our running backs in the backfield. So it wasn't so much on missing blocks up front versus the interior defense, but maybe Illinois State had something schemed up where like they saw something like we're triggering a guy off the edge and he's going to go knife the running back. Whether it was, I don't know, we got out of those formations where they couldn't really do that as much in the second half. We were able to establish a running game more so.
I think what a lot of people are in the fan base, people who listen to Doctorman or Leistico or anybody who's reported on the team over the last, since Lester's been hired, a lot of the desire with this new offense is we cannot show we cannot have such predictable tendencies.
Right.
And I think, and you're not going to hear me and Kevin, and when Grant's here for these recap episodes, you're not going to hear any of us three be able to. Kevin probably could if he wanted to, and he really sat down and watched the game again, watched the replay, watched the tape, and broke down X's and O's. Even if I did that, I wouldn't be able to, and Grant would not be able to really bring you the commentary here on the recaps of what Tim Lester did to change up or what he called differently or how we switched the scheme up or how we called certain things. You're not going to get that kind of analysis here. But what I will say is
we can talk about a Patreon level, but that's to go over the game in that level of depth probably takes a good 2 to 3 hours of study.
Yeah. You got to go back and watch each play 2 or 3 times and run it through like you're watching film.
Taking notes and stuff. Yeah.
But what I will say is knowing that and listening to Tim Lester on podcasts with Leistico, a couple of his interviews from camp and just stuff he's done with the media, he has talked about that. And one of the main things he's talked about, and one of the things that people have been clamoring for, and I'd love to know the percentage on Saturday, is how many plays offensively do we use a pre-snap motion, which is a modern era thing, if you want to call it that, where you can get the defense's eyes or a little bit of their anxiety just ticked up one more percentage point because, okay, now we got to follow this guy across the field. Who has him? Are we switching? Is a guy running with him across the field? Is it man? If he's zone, how does that switch things as he moves from one side of the formation to the other? We definitely saw more pre-snap motion. And by just general look of the offense, we saw a little bit more variance strategically throughout the entirety of the 60 minutes of that game, as opposed to maybe some of the things we saw with Brian in the past. And I want to say that the clear takeaway from that is as our defense makes adjustments and our offense makes adjustments to Illinois State, if we do well at that, then it makes Illinois State at halftime making adjustments to our offense. If we don't have any real tendency that they can pick up on, it's harder for them to now key in on certain things. So in the second half, you run a couple things here, you run a couple things there. Lester sees a few things. This is something we hadn't talked about. Lester's in the box. Brian was always on the field. He liked to be on the field. I think
he spent one season in the box, then he went down to the field after that.
He almost punched a hole through the wall in one game or something like that. I think an OC needs to be up top. I think you need that view of the field. It just feels like that would be advantageous.
I'd probably tend to agree because you get such a better view down there. Like you can have guys in the box like talking to you in your ear, telling you what they're seeing, but I think you got to get a firsthand feel for what's happening, and that's just the best way you can get it.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at there is I would like to think that, and time will tell, I would like to think that Lester had a good first outing as a coach, as a play caller here. And that's sort of part of what showed in the second half. Execution, absolutely. Our guys started to dominate. I think something that we always talk about in the early season, Kev, is when you go up against these FCS opponents, as time wears on in a 60-minute football game, the Big Ten team is going to wear on you a little bit. Like, right, that second half gets difficult. They get tired.
Mm-hmm.
Our guys are
open up a few more gaps on the offensive line.
Yep.
Honestly, another thing that if might be the biggest positive of the game is we got out of this game extremely healthy. Illinois State got beat up.
And sort of that's what I'm getting at. Your roster, guy number 1 to number 70 on the travel roster of Illinois State. If you go across that roster, you're probably,
what? Yeah, what? I think FCS, they only get 65 scholarships too. So.
Resources are just a little bit less. They're not eating like I was eating, guaranteed. They probably aren't training quite like I was training. The guys that they get at base level before they even get their hands on them, we probably man-to-man got a few pounds, got a few more built guys out of high school than they did. So that kind of thing starts to weigh on you when you're going 11v11 and it gets to be the fourth quarter and it's hot. And that's a lot of what you see in these games is guys can hang around for a while and then they start to drop off. And you see a lot of injuries on the FCS side of the game. I saw something about the NCAA football game where if you play an FCS team, there's like a guy hurt on every play. And someone's like, they were like, oh my God. I thought this was like a glitch in the game, but this is real. FCS guys get hurt all the time. And there's a reason for that they probably do get hurt at a slightly higher rate than the other guys. Health. Yeah. What?
Yeah, I was just going to say that on average, probably a little smaller and don't have the resources that bigger teams have.
Yeah. So, all of that conversation, the last 10 or 15 minutes of what we've been talking about to say, this is Kevin and I's, mostly me, my speculation on why did it take to the second half? What's the difference between the first and the second half here? My best explanation, a couple of people DM me on Twitter, is like, it's usually not that difficult, not that complicated. This is probably mostly a product of just dusting some cobwebs off and guys starting to feel the flow of the game and execute a little better. Like that's just what it is. So,
yeah, if you want to single out one guy, like Cade didn't look great in the first half.
No,
like he missed a handful of throws. A couple guys had some drops, but second half, guy looked pretty crisp.
Looked like a superhero. His stats were unbelievable.
Yeah, and ability to maneuver in the pocket, escape a few sacks, and then spring a few runs. That's very exciting to see as an Iowa fan who's been watching some very immobile quarterbacks for the last handful of years.
This is a perfect segue because I want to talk about some individual performances across the entirety of this team. And let's start with QB1, Cade McNamara. People came out. We had the Kids Day drama, Sullivan versus McNamara. They both looked very lackluster. Oh my gosh, does McNamara just not have it anymore? He's hurt. He's been hurt for 2 years. He's just going to be another one of what we've had the last couple of years. And he kind of looked like it in that first half. And then, hey, we elude a guy. You want to know something about McNamara that I think we took chances. He was taking I mean,
one of which ended up being good, but the second touchdown to Vander's
not a good throw.
No. Don't do that next week.
But I do think to a certain extent, Kevin, sometimes you need to throw a guy open.
For sure. Yeah.
And that
he definitely did. On Gill's touchdown, he did. On that one nice little throw, I think it was to Estranga, that he was escaping in the pocket. Yeah, he definitely threw him open there. Yeah, he did some really good things. And then he zipped the ball into a few tight windows. He looked pretty good that second half.
Like you said, he avoided the one guy, the sack that came up the middle, sidestepped, and was that the one that he went to Gill for the touchdown on?
No, that was the one, I believe.
Yeah.
It was like a 20-something yard play.
Yeah, just making plays, extending a play. And sometimes if there's a guy, running down the sideline, or if Jacob Gill is, you could see in the end zone view, Jacob Gill's not open when he throws that ball, but he throws it to a spot where he's going to be open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had the guy in for the DB on him, kind of had some poor leverage, but Cade put it in the perfect spot for him to go get it, and the other guy was not positioned to be able to make that play.
The Reese second time he took a chance and just kind of threw that up. I think it was actually meant for Lachey.
Might have been, but that kid's 6'4", dude.
Yeah. Let's talk about this fresh. We'll move on from Cade. Obviously, we liked what we saw to Cade. It's Illinois State. There's an asterisk on all this in a small way. But it's better than 7-3 against that South Dakota State. It's, like, the stats are the stats. I get it. We haven't had brother, imagine not having a team, not cheering for a team, not doing a podcast for a team that doesn't average over 450 yards of offense. Couldn't be me. Couldn't be us, Kev. Dude, 492 yards of offense? I don't care if it's against my Marshalltown Bobcats.
When's the last time we were near 500? Like,
I think,
did anyone come up with a stat? Like, what is that the most yards since which game? It's got to go back a ways.
Somebody put it up there because at the end they were like, dang it, I wish we would have hit 500 because it would have been the first time since, and I don't remember what game it was.
2019, maybe?
How many did we have against USC?
A lot. Maybe not 500, though.
It's so many yards of offense.
Teams touchdowns that game.
Yeah.
Was it 19 or 18 where we smacked Indiana around? Might have been that game.
It's been a very long time since we've even sniffed 500. Kev, I don't remember the last time what?
I just saw a USC guy make an unbelievable grab.
Okay. That game's going on right now. I have a bet on that game. What's the score of that, by the way?
It is 0-0 in the second quarter, so my under is looking good so far.
Wow, I think I played the under on that one as well.
I don't know if he caught it. If he did, it's an unreal grab.
So, this Reese kid, true freshman, but do we have a baller on our hands?
I mean, dude can go up and snag it.
Now, here's what's interesting, Kev. Another one of these funny stats from Iowa. By the way, what I was going to say is I don't remember the last time we had 400 yards of offense, let alone close to 5. We averaged 230. 232, Kevin, was what we averaged last year.
So you're saying we gave her a little double risky?
Yes. Now, we last year, Kevin, had 3 receiving touchdowns.
From receivers, what you're saying.
From receivers.
Yeah.
All year long. In 2022, Kevin, we had 2 touchdowns from receivers. We had 3 in one game. Are we back? Are we so back? It feels like it.
Back like we never left, baby.
And like I said, we now have this.
You know what's funny is we get 3 receivers with touchdowns in one game, and then the next day we get a 4-star recruit commit for a receiver.
Brother, Terrence Smith or something out of we got a 4. Are you kidding? We got a 4. All it took was to throw a couple tutties against an FCS program, and now I was getting 4-star wide receivers.
What?
People better be careful
Watch out.
with what they let us get away with. Now, Kev, we didn't even have our top 2 receivers in this game.
That is correct.
We have one suspended for a DUI over the summer. He'll be back this week. And then it was reported just before the game time that Seth Anderson, the guy who caught the first touchdown last year, everybody got excited, and then we just went dead for the year. He was out for some reason or other. Maybe, I don't know, injury. So now we got this Reese kid who's a true freshman, comes in, balls out. He's an option.
Yeah, so I mean, like he made that one real nice snag where he went and high pointed the ball for the touchdown, the inadvisable throw. He caught one that was in one of those tight windows and took a pretty big shot, held on to the ball. I mean, kid's got a big frame, so yeah, he's got quite the potential.
Dude, 6'4"?
Yeah.
That's all we need, brother. 6'4"?
We haven't had a big target like that at receiver since
Tavon
Smith, I don't think.
Oh, Brandon. By the way, shout out to Brandon. Made the Jets practice squad. Balled out in the preseason. So they mentioned him. They said Reese during camp, like, we like this kid. He's got a potential to play. They say he has some of the best hands on the team. Like, if it's near him, he's catching it. We've seen what what's his face? Caleb Brown can do. He's got unbelievable athleticism. I think Seth Anderson's a good decent sized receiver option, especially once he comes back.
Some speed to him.
And then our guy, Caden Weechin, who should have one return touchdown in one game so far, if we just don't make some dumbass block in the back. I don't know if he touches him, even if we don't touch that guy, Kev.
I mean, that guy was in the right position. The defender was in the right position.
I'm taking Weechin.
Might have at least made him cut back, but
I'm taking Weechin to juke that guy if we don't.
That was 100% a penalty.
Oh yeah, it certainly was a flag.
Yeah,
but this guy has speed, and I think he's got an opportunity to do damage in the slot this year.
I mean, yeah, just another gritty punt returner. Yeah, he still made a couple nice returns despite that one getting called back.
He has talent. I don't know if we're ever going to find a Cooper DeJean. I don't think we're going to have the drop off that people are scared that we might. And I don't think, the 2 big guys we lost from last year are Cooper and Torrey. And this is like, oh, how are we going to replace this punter? How are we going to replace the impact that Cooper had? Maybe yet to be seen on the defensive side. But I've watched a lot of returners in my day. Caden has no fear. He is comfortable back there, and he doesn't care if you're in his face. He's grabbing that. He just like Coop used to do. He's grabbing that thing, and he's going to try and make a play. So I love what we have there potentially. Reese, for anybody who's wondering, I've seen the kid hit punts in practice. I've seen some clips of him on social media. I've seen what he did the other day in the game. Give him a couple games to work into it. He's going to be a great punter. Kid can absolutely smoke it. Again, I don't know if he has the chip shot that Torrey did, but we're going to be fine. He's got all the leg strength that we need. We are just fine in the punting department. QB1, Caden, Reese. Who else can we shout out? Any other individual?
So, question. Did Kaleb Johnson play any snaps in the first half?
I think he was suspended for a half.
That's kind of what I was thinking is like, because he is clearly the better back.
He's RB1 by a long shot.
So I'm guessing he was in a little timeout in the first half, and that's why Kamari Moulton got the start.
Last week, it was all about, I get on there with that iCult podcast that I'm now starting up every week, and RB1, Moulton, is in front. And we hear a little bit from KF on Tuesday that, well, it's because LaShawn was banged up, so Moulton's been getting – and Lester comes out and says, well, Moulton's got a handle on a certain play that we like that kind of opens up our offense. Man, what I've seen from Kaleb Johnson in the past couple years, he seems to me like our most complete running back. And what do you know? We come out in the second half, and number 2 starts shredding people. He runs so unbelievably smooth. His head doesn't move when he runs. It's like I only wish that I had the body control and speed that he does. He runs away from people, and it doesn't look like he's trying. And again, shout out to the O-line. We started moving people. You can't run for touchdowns if there's no holes, but Kaleb Johnson absolutely came out on fire. And I would have to imagine that he's kind of the guy we're leaning towards here. I know it's going to be by committee. Moulton and LaShawn Williams are going to get plays. We don't want Kaleb Johnson to have to do it himself. But I think.
But we got to get him at least 10 to 15 touches a game.
I think he's the guy we get the majority of the touches to.
Yeah.
And yes, I think he was in timeout. I think we did something. I don't know what.
That's pure speculation, but that's what makes the most sense.
I don't remember a single play for that number 2 was in the first half. And again, I missed, 30% of the first half, but yeah, he was unbelievable. I didn't watch the line specifically, but we didn't allow any sacks. That's a great thing. We're going against a FCS defensive line.
Gotta work on some pressure pickups. That gotta get a little bit better there for sure. But yeah, no sacks is good, and part of that's credit to Cade too.
Absolutely. And again, if he can be mobile, this is going to look a lot different than it has in the past couple years. And then Lachey had a great game. I think he was targeted 8 times, had 6 catches. He's going to make plays for us. He's going to be a great tight end. I don't know if we're going to see the kind of numbers that we've seen like we did with Eric All and Lachey when they were healthy last year. Before that, we had Laporta. Ideally, if the receivers play well and we have 3 or 4 options that we feel comfortable throwing to, Lachey, by product of spreading it around more, is not going to get 10 catches a game. That's a good thing. So, he's going to make his plays. I don't know if he's going to have crazy numbers, but he is an incredible safety net to have, and he looked good. He looked athletic out there. Defensively, you want to talk about anybody? We need somebody for the Premier Automotive collision of the game. I saw Higgins come in on a couple.
Smacked guys.
Oh my God. Dude, you do not.
Yeah, there's one. I think. Oh man, who had I think Castro had him. Had a guy that kind of tangled up. The guy's trying to spin out of it. He spins forward and catches a mouthful of Jay Higgins, and that one looked painful.
A mouthful of Jay Higgins. That could be a T-shirt. I know exactly the play you're talking about. Whoever had him first had kind of slowed him down. He was kind of just standing there, and Higgins hit him like a truck. And you could feel it through the TV, dude. It was I think I flinched, and it was that was the play. I turned to Lauren and I go, every year that we get further away from my playing career, I'm glad that I don't play this game anymore, because I would be on that field in a potential situations where I could get hit like that, and it hurts me to watch, let alone be a part of. Jay Higgins is not somebody that you want to square you up.
No, no. I'm excited to watch him for another year, because if he can improve on what he did last year, he's in for a special year.
He's an All-American. If he improves on what he did last year, he's an All-American. He's preseason All-American. Yeah.
Preseason awards don't mean shit, but
they don't mean shit. But they speak to what you've done, and if you get better on what you've done, then maybe you can follow that up with a season like that. I don't know. The defense, again, sort of an all-around great job. We need to pick it up now because it's state week. We'll give that Premier Automotive collision of the game to Jay Higgins. I don't think it will be the last time he wins that this year.
We can just keep it there until someone else.
We're just going to name it the Jay Higgins. Brought to you by Jay Higgins.
Brought to you by Jay Higgins. There
and Premier Automotive. What we didn't mention, we didn't go over, is our betting picks for the weekend.
Oh. We're not completely done, but we can go through them.
We are not completely done. I'll pull it up on the Instagram. I don't know if I've had a week like this all last season. I'd have to go back to 22, I believe. As a spoiler, your boy was 3-0. My prediction for this game was about exactly how it happened. I thought maybe we'd be a little better in the first half, but in totality, I said something along the lines of, I don't think that we're going to let them score if at any points. If they do, it's not going to be very many. And it'll still stay under, barely. But we're going to score enough points to cover. And I ended it with probably like a Hawks by a million, which makes sense. NDSU covers on Colorado. Great game to open up the slate this weekend on a Thursday.
Yep, that was a good
we
call
were really pulling for the Polisecs there. They didn't get it done, but they did cover +10. Iowa, obviously 40-0 covers the -22. And then I thought the easiest play of the weekend, if you knew the injury situation with Charlotte, I think JMU ended up winning like 30-10 or 30-7 against Charlotte, and they were -8.5. So your boy goes 3-0 on the weekend. I'll be 3-1 heading into week 2.
That's what some of the experienced bettors say is like the best place to make money is like those games that aren't watched, those unpopular games in those other conferences. Just if you're on the beat with those teams, that you can make good money on them.
Yeah. Tell me how you fared.
We did pretty good. So I had North Carolina -2 to start the weekend on Thursday. They pushed that bet. I was actually lucky enough. I got the bet in at -1.5 a little bit after that.
So feel good about it.
I feel good about it. It's a tie on the scoreboard, though, so we're going to give it a push there. Always hilarious to see Minnesota lose in such a fashion, then set off fireworks.
Accidentally set off fireworks because they thought that
after
they won.
Missing the game-winning field goal. Hilarious. Love to see it. Ole Miss -42 versus Furman. They win by a final score of 76-0.
Oh my God, that's it. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, they've got a pretty good team down there in Oxford this year, and I don't think that's going to be the last time they smoke someone that badly.
And then currently USC LSU.
Currently, yeah, we got the under in the USC and LSU game. I've got it at 64.5. It is currently 7-0 with 9 minutes left in the second quarter. So we're looking good there.
Beautiful. And is it 7-0 LSU or 7-0 USC?
USC is up 7-0.
Okay.
But yeah, it's we're looking pretty good there. So
you could be a 2-0-1 on the weekend officially on the stat.
Mm-hmm.
We'll recap Gary's. Miami of Ohio played at Northwestern. And this did come down to a pretty close game, but I think Northwestern actually ended up winning by like a touchdown.
Northwestern did win, and I believe they covered as well.
Yeah, so
he
misses.
Had to cover 3. The final score is 13-6. So they did win and they did cover. So that's a loss.
Grant doesn't have that one. Notre Dame beat Texas A&M in College Station, so he doesn't get Texas A&M -3. West Virginia got absolutely pounced by Penn State.
Yeah, they were able to keep it close there for a little bit, and then second half, Penn State turns it on a little bit more.
So that's 0-3 for Gary, and then
he have 4 bets,
and then he threw USC +4 on there for the last one. So
okay, so
he still has a chance to win 1 of 4, but it is a rough weekend for Gary to start. Opposite for me, I go 100%, and Kevin, if this game goes under, basically stays a little bit unscathed as well. So decent opening weekend. I will say this. I threw this parlay in last minute. It might have been even halftime of the Iowa game. So I don't know if you checked this at all. You probably didn't because you were on your way to a wedding. At halftime of the Iowa game, 6-0, everyone's freaking out. The line slipped to Iowa -13.5.
Oh, God.
Total of 22.5. And I just thought to myself, I know how this goes. Even if we still suck, we're gonna open it up a little bit. Like we're going to find something.
That's asking Iowa to win the second half by at least 7 points, and then
yes,
there to be 16
basically
more points scored.
Yeah, 2 more touchdowns and a field goal total.
Yeah, I was like, that's a phenomenal bet.
I was like, there's no way this doesn't happen. So I jumped all over that. I threw in a five pick parlay of the Iowa the in-game line of Iowa, Illinois State over, Iowa to cover that 13.5, Georgia to just simply win versus Clemson, which was middle of the game and they were up like
halftime. I think it was 13-3 or something.
They were up like 7-0 at the time or something. Yeah. So
then they just ran away with it in the second half.
So I threw that on there. That gave me a little bit of extra juice. And then I did. Who did I have? I had Northwestern to just win versus Miami of Ohio. They did that. Mm-hmm. And then my last bet was the under in the Nebraska game, which.
What was it at?
At halftime, there was 30 points scored. It was a 49-point over-under. I was like, God, Raiola looks good. I'm sorry to say this, but he looks phenomenal for a freshman. Maybe not phenomenal, but he looks great for a freshman. And they're going to be they might be decent.
49.5 was the number.
49.5 was the number. They had there was 5 minutes left in the third quarter, Kev, and there was 44 points on the board.
Yeah. Yep.
And they did not. They end up kicking a field goal with it. Somebody kicks a field goal in
with 10 minutes left, Nebraska kicks a field goal, so you're at 47. So any score besides a safety in the last 9 minutes of the game, you lose.
Somehow, some way, nobody finds the end zone. Nobody kicks a field goal the rest of that game, and we cover. It was the adjusted odds for the parlay was plus 500, and it hit. Nice. So we came up this weekend. We came up this weekend real nice. And I have a bet in on this USC LSU game. I took the under and LSU to cover. And that was just a 2-pick parlay. So
LSU just scored a touchdown. So you
we love that.
You're back in play.
We love that. Is there anything else I want to mention? I mean, there's not a whole lot much left. We've talked about some of the individual performances. It's Iowa State week, so things get ratcheted up here, meaning wise, not necessarily in the building. They are. As we've said, every year somebody asks, how do they prepare for Iowa State? When, do you feel the juice when you walk? No, it's like this. It's the same. Oh, I know. We didn't talk about Goat Wallace.
Goat Wallace, 1-0, baby.
1-0, baby. Let's go.
Love it.
I don't know if you caught any of his in-game interviews. I think he was almost a little emotional. And rightfully so. You get thrust into the head role. You're now doing the interviews. You're now he got a little bit he was almost chuckling at some of the questions he was at. Melanie was her name, the reporter. They asked what'd you say to your team at half to kind of get him in gear? And he kind of laughed because I know what he was thinking. He was like, my team. This isn't my team. This is ridiculous. He was awesome. And from what Cade said in the post-game interview, he did fire him up at half a little bit. And I want to know what Goat Wallace said so bad at halftime of the game.
Get your head out of your fucking ass.
I turned to Lauren when they went to half, and I was like, I know for a fact that Coach Wallace could potentially be right now saying, hey, you better get your shit together, all right? Or we're going to look like fucking dumbasses out here against Illinois State. And I was just doing an impression. It was pretty
You don't want to have to walk back to your parents after this game and justify why you just lost to Illinois State.
Yeah. Good for him, man. And I think, I don't know if they really rallied behind KF. They're going to be, when KF walks out of the tunnel on Saturday, there's going to be a little juice going.
So yeah, like I said, I did not make it into the stadium for this game, but I am excited for Iowa State to be back in Kinnick Stadium. I will be there.
Ooh.
And I am excited, and we are going to have a good time. Hawks are minus 2.5, and we will preview it for you later in the week.
On Thursday. A very quick note on that. Just, how did Iowa State do this weekend? They handled North Dakota, but it certainly wasn't any kind of blowout. I think they ended up winning 21-3. They had 2 offensive linemen, projected starters, out before the game even started. And then early in the game, they had supposedly what I saw Chris Williams tweet, and he follows the Cyclones. Supposedly their best defensive player, linebacker, went down very early and did not return. So I think they probably have more questions than answers relative to the Hawkeyes. And that's not always normally the case these last few years. So we like to see that. This will be real. This will give us a little better of a feeling of how the offense actually is this week, how the defense actually is this week. But I don't feel worse. I feel better about it. And, at this point, there's a whole lot more positivity right now than there has been after the last few games of Iowa football, the last few years of Iowa football. So it feels really good, man. Feels really good.
Let's keep it going, man. Let's just keep feeling good.
Let's feel good, man.
Stack them together, man.
One day at a time, one game at a time. Like Kevin said, we'll preview this game later on in the week. I'm excited to do it. More picks coming later this week. Kevin and I start off hot, so we're gonna have more picks for you guys. And the whole lineup this week will be back. We'll be David Eichholt on Wednesday, 5-10-5 show with Coach Lima on Friday. If you're on the Patreon, me and Gary on Tuesday. We'll be here all week. Thank you guys for tuning in this year. 1-0, and it's hate week. Let's go. We'll talk to you next time. Peace.